Hello and welcome to episode 129 of The Imperial Truth. I'm Greg and it's just me for most of the show. We have Neil joining us back along with James from Siege Studios talking about what they've been up to and Adepticon and who Siege are and things like that all a little bit later on. But before we go anywhere else, let us mention some sponsors. And first off, I'd like to announce that we've got a little bit of a deal going with Geek Shield. So they've come on to sponsor the show. We had Pete on a few shows back. Geek Shield is basically, he's an insurance guy, and he was looking at people who may have the wrong life insurance. Was particularly, but people who don't have it as well. And he's someone I've gone to talk about mine, and some friends of mine have as well. But also, listeners of the show have gone to him and have found him to be, found his service to be really good. He talked a little bit on that show about having a few people who he looked at their insurance policies and they basically weren't up to scratch. The people weren't getting from them what they thought they were. And he takes, great kind of satisfaction in getting them a product that works for them. You can find them on Facebook, Geek Shield, sorry. You can, find them on Facebook. I'll put the link in the show notes as well. And there's references on there. And, if you're, certainly a number of people in the heresy who are listening to this will be of a certain age and everything else. I myself am 39 with a kid about to be born with no life insurance or sickness insurance, anything like that really in place. And actually now kind of thinking that it would be a wise thing to do, and talking on my own. My policy was I can't remember because we haven't even sorted out the full details of it yet, and these things change. The process is very much collaborative. It's not here's what it is. Do you pay it or not? It's here's what I think would be a requirement for you. What would you like to change? That kind of stuff. It's designed to be customer focused, but if paying less than my insurance on my two cats were to get a decent amount of life insurance for if the worst thing in life happens, and my wife and my child can be financially secure. So we won't go every advert. We won't go fully into the details. So you can go back and listen to the chat with Pete on an earlier episode. But thank you, Pete, for coming on. If you want to give them a hit up, let them know that you heard about it here, or you were inspired to go to them from hearing about them on this advert, because that makes that shows it's worthwhile for Pete doing his thing as well. One thing Pete does do is as they get more people who sign up, one of the big things about Geek Shield, I should have said it, is he gives bonuses. So after however long that you've been with them, you get a £25 voucher, toy voucher. So many of those down the line, which is fantastic. You're getting your little bonus in the form of money off toys, which is never a bad thing. And then he also does it when he achieves certain milestones within the Geek Shield brand as well. So when they reach a certain value, he will do one for the community that follow him as well. So it's not just about that kind of initial thing that he does that Geek Shield do. Go check them out. The links are all in the show notes, and you can just Google, search Facebook for Geek Shield. That will take you straight there. On top of that, we do have Element Games. One of my friends contacted me yesterday who's less kind of au fait with the big independent retail outlets, and he'd gone to a friendly local game store at various times, but that game store's no longer in operation, and he uses Games Workshop, and he asked me about Element and said, how do I do this? And I sat with him Friday afternoon and said, oh yeah, use this, you can put your crystals in, blah, blah, blah. And later on, I asked him to add something on for me, which was released on the Saturday. And he said, when's yours released? Is it going to hold things up? And I said, well, you've ordered at 2:15. Go and check your order status. And at 4 o'clock or whatever, he said, oh, it's already been shipped. and it turned up like about 10:30 on the Saturday morning. So you can't argue with service like that, with the speed of service that, it doesn't happen every single time, but happens enough that you kind of start to rely on it a little bit. You're like, I can get on with stuff. If I buy it from them, it will turn up tomorrow. And you can do that for all your plastic crack, as well as loads of other hobby essentials, whether it's knives and glue and clippers and paints and everything else. So thank you to Element for supporting the show. If you go to them, go through our link in the show notes and you help support the show. I do want to shout out again, I don't do it every time and I don't do it fully, but we do have a Patreon. And there are some people with the change of show who've adjusted their Patreon or stopped it. I want to thank anyone who's ever contributed to the Patreon. We don't do anything. We don't make a big song and dance about it. It's purely a tip jar. If you feel like you want to, give $1 a month to say thank you for the show, then that's amazing. If you want to give more, that's amazing as well. And if you've ever done it or you're thinking about doing it, then that's amazing. You can go to Patreon and, again, there's a link in the show notes, the Imperial Truth on there. And essentially you can set a limit. We only take once a month. You can put in as little as $1 and it just helps pay for all the hosting of the feed and the website and things like that. Which reminds me that bill's coming up at some point to pay for the websites. But it's all part of the fun of podcasting. But I just want to say a big shout out to any and all of those people who've ever supported the show on Patreon. Well, that took a little longer than expected. And actually, there's quite a lot of stuff to go through in terms of news and going on in the heresy, and that's partly the change to recording every month, but also there's just been a lot of stuff going on in the hobby and a lot of news for things coming up as well. So let's start with events, because there's someone got hold of me. In fact, we'll start with that one. It's Keith got hold of me, and he's running an event under the Mournival podcast kind of banner. And it's the Burning of Prospero. So this is an event in West Thurrock, so that's Essex, I'm sure, and £20, so nice and affordable. Yeah, there are various dates for this. So Saturday 29th of August, Sunday 30th of August, Saturday 26th of September, Sunday 27th of September. And so as I say, £20. Coffee, tea, coffee, soft drinks are available. The number of entries, there's a number of eateries local as well. You will be required to build a 2,500 point force using the Age of Darkness rule set with restricted forces. So only the forces from the list are allowed for this narrative event. Thousand Sons Mechanicum, Forge World Zal Arcad. Militia, civilian forces called to arms for the defence of Prospero. Solar Auxilia representing the Spire Guard. And then on the other side of things, the Volca Fenricia, the Talons of the Emperor, and the Sons of Horus. Named characters will be on a first-come, first-served basis. We're looking at so when paying for the event, you name any characters you wish to take, and they hold the right to ask you to change your forces to make sure it's within the spirit of the event and fully painted. 3 games of Horus Heresy, multiple awards, purpose-built terrain, narrative aids, loads of cool stuff. So if you're interested, you can find that. I'll put links to it in the show notes, or you can go to the UK Horus Heresy and Adeptus Titanicus events page, and Keith's posted it there. I'm sure it's posted on the Mournival podcast as well. Sounds really cool. I think there's a humans only event going on somewhere as well. I think these might become a bit more popular now. There's enough people now, particularly around the UK. It might not be the case. Mileage may vary, but there's definitely enough people in the UK that have got the armies to be able to do these narrative events and to be able to fill out, because obviously if you're hiring a hall and everything else like that, you need to be able to cover the costs, because we shouldn't be expecting event organisers to be out of pocket doing these kind of things. They're already giving up time and a lot of energy a lot of the time to put on these events. So there's no reason why. Absolutely, we should expect them to not lose money. And to be honest, if they make a little bit of money, it's not like they're going to give up work to do it. So I think that's fair enough. So that's cool. That's one to look out for later in the year. I was also contacted by Perfect Pete. We talked about Geek Shield earlier, and this is Pete who was on that, who's behind all that, and was on the show. And just as a show of the fact that he's not, this is a guy who gives back to the community. Pete runs a lot of events, puts a lot of effort into that kind of stuff. I'll read his story from the Just Giving page. Thank you for taking the time to visit. My uncle died aged 44 due to lung cancer. He never smoked, hardly drank, and was a very unsuspecting target of the disease. He was a huge advocate of geek gaming culture. Worked for Nintendo in his early years, followed by Joytech and Take-Two over in the US. Played a lot of board games and miniature games over the last few years. With Pete living in the UK and him in the US, he's so glad he got to travel out there and see him last summer, just to hang out and play games and introduce him to his wife-to-be. He'd like to give away a book in honour of him. The book is unopened, it's in its original packaging. That book is The First Wall. It's the limited edition First Wall, should I say. The donation required for entry for the draw is £3. Only one entry per person, please. Should you wish to leave more, that's fine, but one entry will be counted. Please feel free to share it. Pete Dunn of 30k Frontier. So here's another chance for someone to win a signed copy of The First Wall without having to pay huge amounts of money for it. I spoke to Pete because he was asking about different ways of doing this, and I suggested Just Giving is a fantastic way of collecting money, but also of having everything above board. Pete's chosen to limit how many entries so that everyone's got a good chance of winning. I think that's fair enough. You can't drop £200 on this and effectively, hopefully, buy it. He's limited that. A lot of people are giving more than £3. If you want to give the £3, give the £3. I will say again, just from experience, if you do go and use Just Giving to do this, right at the end when you put all your details in, there's a little box to tick which allows Just Giving to share your details. So if you do win, it makes it a lot easier for you to get your book. So yeah, head on over there. I'll put those links in the show notes as well. And then the final little shout out at the start is actually for my event, or should I say an event in which I am running part. Blood and Glory has been announced, and we are certainly doing 30k and Heresy there. For those who don't know, Blood and Glory has been going a fair while. I've been running Heresy at it for 3 years now, previous 3 years, something like that. This year we're having a change of venue. We're going to the Nottingham Tennis Centre, obviously in Nottingham. It's about 5 minutes from Warhammer World. Previously, the event's been in November, but this year it's moving away from both Halloween and Fireworks Night to the 9th to the 11th of October. So that's the Friday through the Saturday and the Sunday. There are going to be Age of Sigmar events, are Age of Sigmar 40k, Heresy, Titanicus. I think there was talk of some Blood Bowl, Underworlds, loads of other stuff. GW are providing some sort of support. I'm not, there's a guy who deals with that aspect of it, Ben, who runs the event. My job is to get my bits running. So we've had previews there. The Games Workshop previews we've had there before. There's loads of cool stuff. It's a really cool, fun event. What we're losing in having a cool venue like where we used to hold it in the Roundhouse in Derby, we're making up for by being near Warhammer World, by having a bit more space, all being in the same room, and moving forwards. The Roundhouse was quite an expensive place to hold events as well, and not necessarily ideal for wargaming, although it was quite cool. Blood and Glory is looking really fun. We got the dates out nice and early. We are hoping to get all the packs out nice and early and the tickets out nice and early as well. Nottingham, in terms of where it is, there's a lot of hotels within a very short distance. Nottingham's quite easy to get around. And as I say, if you're coming down for an event like that, not everyone can take time off a lot of the time. When we were in Derby, there wasn't a huge amount around Derby, but with it being Nottingham, you can make that trip to Warhammer World as well. So you can almost make it. I want to be up there and help set up early on the Friday morning. So last year we went up to Warhammer World on the Thursday and met some friends Thursday night. And me and my wife basically made a 4-day event of it. We're going to have a little one this time. We're going to have to do things slightly differently, but we still might be out there for 4 days. In fact, we might even stay over that Sunday night because of the little one, so we don't have to rush around. But really looking forward to Blood and Glory. I've got a lot of work to do and got a lot of organising and packs to write and all that kind of stuff. But hopefully Blood and Glory is going to be as good as it was, or even better, should we say, than it has been. I am still looking for little bits of help. I've had a couple of people step in and say they're offering help. Things like spare players is always an interesting one. So if you do maybe want to talk to me about what that involves and everything like that, then please get hold of me. And there's with these kind of events, there is always a need for a certain level of volunteers. We've got quite a few, but if I could get 1 or 2 people to help me, that would be amazing. As I say, 1 or 2 already volunteered, but there's always something you can find someone to do. So yeah. But that's those events. Let's talk about what GW have released. Now, we are a 30k podcast. There is a good strong link to Adeptus Titanicus. If you are interested in Adeptus Titanicus and you don't listen to Full Stride, then go and search it in your podcatcher, because Matt Woodsmith and myself have a Adeptus Titanicus podcast and we're loving it and it seems to be going very well. And we talk a lot about Tiny Titans. And we've covered all the latest releases in there and the FAQ that's come out, but I will just briefly cover a couple of things. We've had the Warbringer come out in plastic, which is we've got the Nemesis Warbringer. We've got a 28mm version of it. We've now got a tiny, amazing version of it. It's the first expansion past the original 3. Excuse me, my throat's been talking with Matt actually recording Full Stride before this, and my throat is struggling, and so it will continue to struggle, but we'll push through. We've had the Warbringer. We've had the Psi Titan, so this maybe gives us an idea. Maybe they do an upgrade bits for the Warlord now, which would be amazing for the 28mm Warlord. But the Psi Titan in Adeptus Titanicus feels like the Psi Titan in 30k. Obviously, they are different games, but it's super cool. It can heal itself. It doesn't take orders. You cast psychic powers, and when things go wrong, they can go horribly wrong. But it can also cause utter devastation, and it's extremely expensive in points. So it is kind of similar to the 30k version in that. The big thing, and we talk about this on the other podcast a lot, is the starter set that they released. Is their first full starter set. Now, the Games Master Edition wasn't a starter set. It was just a big box of toys that lots of people used to start the game. This is a starter set. So for the price of 2 Reavers, so say I went to Element Games and I wanted to buy 2 Reaver Titans. That comes to whatever, 70 or 68 quid or something like that, 70 quid. For the price of those 2 Titans, if I add £2 more, I could get a starter set, which comes with 2 Reaver Titans, 2 Warlord Titans, and 2 Knight Lancers, and rulebook, and the bits you need to play the game. It's a fantastic value piece of kit. If you've been put off playing Adeptus Titanicus because you think it's too expensive, you still have to pay for it. So if money's tight and you just can't afford another game, that's fair enough. But if you've stopped playing it because you think the game is too expensive, and to put your money towards that you do have, then maybe you should be thinking about it again, because it's fantastic value. I showed a guy at our club how to play it who's new, and he's immediately gone out and ordered a starter set, and 3 other people at the club who weren't playing, who came over to watch every now and then, are also considering getting that starter set. It's amazing value. It really is. And I think Titanicus has seen a bit of a growth in interest just on the Depths of Titanicus 2018 page. It's been noticeable how many new people are getting into it. So it's really cool. We've also got terrain that they've released is coming in. We've got rules for Ursa's Claws and Shock Lances. So if you really want to shout fire the Ursa's Claws, you can do it in the Depths of Titanicus now. Potentially, again, because of the nature of CAD design and things like that, it's not as straightforward, honey eye untrunk the Ursa's Claw, but it's easier to do it than it was. So maybe we'll see a 28mm Ursa's Claw for Warhounds. Quite how useful they'd be in 30k. I suppose you could, Ursa's Claw a Mastodon or something and pull it sideways, but Porphyrin would certainly be interesting. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. And the book Shadow and Iron, so covering the 500 Worlds campaigns, some cool information about Titan Legions, a little bit of information about the campaign itself there, but some really cool stuff. Adeptus Titanicus is this month it exploded, and it's only going to get bigger. And there's only going to be more cool stuff there as well. But I did want to mention that. I am recording this last minute. Today was a Black Library celebration, and I did manage to pick up my the Lion Primarch limited edition novel, which sold out online in no time at all, 20 minutes or so, I think, max. I managed to get mine from store, which was good, which means I didn't have to sit online and go through that stress, so that's nice not to have to do that. I did message a friend to get the Horus Rising limited edition from Warhammer World, and they've sold out, and I knew they were selling it today, but I thought they had more copies that they would keep through the year. And they sold out pretty quickly there, which is an interesting idea. There's lots of them on eBay, as you would expect. I'm kind of happy in a way. That normally with these things, we like to think that if it sells well, they'll expand on what they're doing. In this case, personally, the thought process of buying 52 books, again, in a limited edition leather format, is maybe a bit much. I kind of like the idea of having just Horus Rising, but I think that my collecting gene is quite happy to have the hardbacks that we've got, and then the limited editions, and then have those limited editions just for the Siege of Terror. I think when you look at the amount of money it would be, it's a staggering amount of money, and I can't justify that. I'm sure plenty of people could, but yeah, maybe a step too far for me. But yeah, I'll be reading The Lion soon, so keep an eye on social media. I might put up some non-spoiler little bits and pieces for as I'm reading through that. But that's really cool. We've had some Humble bundles as well. It's worth going over to Humble and keeping an eye on what they're doing. Black Library are usually quite good at sharing these things, but we've had a lot of heresy content in there. And for those who don't know, Humble bundle, Humble, they collect a load of stuff together, and they allow you to. There's a minimum price, but they're allowed to pay more, and money goes to charity. And you can get essentially 5-6 books for a couple of dollars, or you can go for the bigger deals and get even more. So you can pick up some good heresy content if you haven't already got it. In what I found them to be useful for is they did a digital one, an audio one a while ago. So for a few dollars, I got a number of heresy books that I own in print format, and I got them in audio format, which means that when I want to read them again, I can do it while at work in the van, which is fantastic. And I've done it for a fraction of the price of purchasing those as I would normally. The other way to get audio content cheap sometimes is Audible. I've started doing a lot more buy one, get one free kind of things, and there's Black Library content in those. So you can find some good deals on Audible if you're a member. And you can... again, I've gone and looked at actually non-heresy stuff, but also buying some heresy stuff I already own, because the value of the deal was really good. So Audible is fantastic anyway if you like audiobooks. but I also find that having that membership, you can find some really good deals in and around, and it's about being aware of it. It's about reading the emails sometimes that they send through, or whether you follow them on social media, about finding those out. And again, groups like Black Library Unofficial are quite good at sharing that kind of information. So if you are into your books, you want to be on those kind of, you want to be following Track of Words on Twitter, and you want to be and on Facebook, and you want to be on the Black Library Unofficial Facebook group as well, because it's a really good place to find out that kind of information. We actually got we're getting some good releases as well for Heresy. We're the start of the year kind of models we got is continuing. It feels like, again, I've said it before, it feels like we're in this good place at the moment. Doing a monthly podcast now means this builds up, so we haven't got to talk about it. Unfortunately, the way we doing the last day of the month means the Road to Thramus posts are a month old. But we got shown Conticar Terminator Elite. So these are Atramentar, a form of Atramentar Terminators. We got shown the renders, which I think look amazing. They're suitably Night Lords and suitably grim. They have, I don't know, kind of a dangerous feel about them, and they've got some, I don't know, like they're just cool. They're just so cool. They're an elite's choice, and there's a new Rite of War as well, the Cross of Bone, which is maybe not as good. For every non-compulsory HQ choice, the number of elite choices available as part of the Force Organisation chart is increased by 1. So this is a Rite of War to encourage you to take extra elite choices. Unfortunately, you can only take 2 extra HQ choices, so you can only get 2 extra elite choices, but you may want to do that. As long as a model from this detachment with the independent character special rule is either alone or in a unit with no other independent characters, it gains +1 attack. Well, that's not bad. Yeah, it's nothing amazing, but that's not bad. The Slay the Warlord secondary objective is worth an additional +1 victory point for the player that has selected this Rite of War if the enemy's Warlord final wound is removed by a friendly model with the independent character special rule. So again, +1 point is quite good. Engineering it that your independent HQ independent character does it is maybe not so easy. We can look at things like Praetor with Paragon Blade is always a tough choice, but generally people try and keep their generals away from it. Maybe you could go for something like a champion with a Paragon Blade in another unit, so there's double the threat, harder to keep away from them. Or something even like a Moritat, and then if they're in a unit that you can cause enough wounds to, but you've dropped your Moritat out the sky, maybe to isolate that character or to finish that character off. There's a few things you can do there. +1 victory point is nice, but it's not. The odd game comes down to 1 victory point, but at the end of the day, if you can take their warlord out, and it's really advantageous to you, you're going to do it no matter what unit you try and do with it. It's worth doing. The limitations are you must take an additional compulsory troops choice. So to get the most out of this, you're going to want 3 HQs, but you're then going to need 3 compulsory troops choices. And then you may not take Conrad Kurz, because this is obviously supposed to represent them at the point where he's basically gone stuff you to the rest of the Legion, or he's not available because he's in the depths of the Lion's warship at the time. And then probably the kicker on this is any unit from this detachment, the Rampant Blade, any unit from this detachment that makes a consolidation move must move the full distance allowed towards the nearest enemy unit within line of sight. If no enemy units are within line of sight, move must be made towards the opponent's deployment zone. So, now this is weird because it doesn't say directly towards. It's one of those things, like, as it stands, if it's directly towards, and it says you must move towards the nearest enemy unit within line of sight, I mean, if that's one model, then you can't spread out anyway. So the problem with combats is you tend to group units together by nature of having to hit and having to pile in. If you then can only consolidate in one direction altogether and you must move the full movement, then you're going to be all clumped together. Now, if someone's got something like a Thanatar or even a Vindicator, they can then potentially wipe out a whole squad in one hit, and that's pretty bad. Add to this that you're spending points on 3 HQs and 3 compulsory troops choices. How many points left for elites do you have, and do you want to take the 6 elite slots that you might have available? Interesting, because those elite slots, if you're picking stuff like Terminators, then you're probably better off just taking Pride of the Legion, because then they become scoring, and the other benefits aren't amazingly, like, you don't sit there and think, wow, I'll be missing out on this or that by doing that. It's a bit middle ground at best, I think. It's good for telling story, absolutely, but it's a bit middle ground unless you're playing a lot of points, I suppose, and you want to increase the number of slots in a detachment before taking another detachment or allies or whatever. It might be good if you want shed loads of dreadnoughts or something like that, I suppose, potentially. Interesting, but yeah, I think. And it's not like Night Lords have like the most amazing rights of wars and everything else anyway. So yeah, we'll see when the book comes out exactly how well it's used. But it's kind of cool. And as I say, those Contigar Terminators, they got the Nostrum Chainblade listed under their thing. I think they're going to have a special one which isn't two-handed. They're really cool. And I'm loving the Road to Thramas as an idea, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. We also got Knights Cenobium or Cenobium Terminators. These are Dark Angels, fantastic models, absolutely fantastic models with some interesting rules. There's a lot going on these knights, but I don't mind that. These are inner circle knights. They are supposed to be absolutely bad. They have a lot of as I say, they have a lot of motifs, but they're knightly. That's cool. They have interesting weapons. They've got a plasma caster. Assault 2 ignores cover, plasma flame, which means when making an Overwatch attack, you reroll failed to hit rolls. 12-inch range, strength 4, AP2. That's not bad. Now they're in Terminator armor, which doesn't allow that, but special rules for them are that they get to make Overwatch rules, because otherwise they'd be pretty useless in that. Yeah, they're in Cataphractic armor, but they have the in addition, such as the superlative skill of the Inner Circle Knights, they make an Overwatch attacks despite being equipped with Cataphractic pattern Terminator armor. So they are getting to use those weapons, and it might be that other people get to use those weapons as well. Let's not forget that. They might be available elsewhere. So, with a lot of shots, that could be interesting. There's no get hot on those weapons, which I know some people were kind of thinking was pretty tough, but they're only 12-inch range. It means charging them could be reroll to hit rolls. Could be dangerous, but you've got to be within. They're not going to be running around the table shooting people from distance. These guys have to get up there. Let's have a look, actually. So they're 1-wound Terminators, which are going to starting at weapon skill 5 with a Preceptor at weapon skill 6. That's pretty classy. So 5 of them for 275 points is pretty expensive. They come with Tyrannic Greatswords and Plasma Casters. They're stubborn, and they've got Adamantium Will. They may take a Land Raider Phobos as a dedicated transport. It's pretty good. You can buy up to 5 more at 45 points each, and you can have grenade harness and digital lasers on the Preceptor and a Thunderhammer in the squad as well. And at the start, before the start of play, each unit may also be assigned an order from the following list. So the entire unit must take the same one. There's quite a few here. Armor of Augurs of Weakness. When making an armor penetration roll against target with armor 11 or more, they get +1 strength. So there's strength 4, so they go to strength 5 with the Tyrannic Greatswords. So that's an interesting one. icons of resolve, +1 attack any turn in which it or unit is part of is charged by one or more enemy units. So you're getting your charge bonus even if you're being charged. Against certain armies, that could be really good. Guardians of Sanctity, when making a Deny the Witch roll, roll an additional d6 and discard the lower result before determining whether it succeeds or fails. I've got Magnus making some noise beside me, so you might hear that. Slayer of Kings, a model may reroll failed to hit rolls of 1 when engaged in close combat or in a challenge with any model whose weapon skill is 5 or higher. So again, you're coming up against Custodes or something like that. That could be really good. Hunters of Beast may reroll failed to wound rolls of 1 when engaged in combat with a model with a toughness of 5, or any failed to reroll if it's toughness 6 or higher. So something like Mechanicum particularly. Reapers of Host, +1 attack in any fight subphase they begin in base contact with more than one enemy model. So if against hordes, they suddenly get better against hordes. Breaker of Witches. This model may reroll all to hit and wound rolls in close combat when attacking an enemy unit affected by a blessing psychic power, or an enemy unit with either Psycho, or Brotherhood of Psychos, Sorcerers, Psychic, Pilot, Demon, or Demon of the Ruin Storm special rules. So you can really tailor this unit at the point after you know what you're playing. So yeah, playing demons, you might want to take that. Reroll all hit into wound rolls is pretty baller. If you're playing someone and they choose to take Armoured Breakthrough, maybe you take Augurs of Weakness. If you maybe know that the enemy can scoot round and has got great speed, maybe something like Space Wolves in Spartans or something like that, or running across the table with their Grey Slayers, then maybe you take the extra 1 attack when you're charged. And then, as I say, fighting Custodes, maybe you take Slayer of Kings, Mechanicum, Hunters of Beasts. There's a lot of really cool options with this squad. They're not cheap. Their guns have only got a 12-inch range. The chances are they're going to be in a vehicle being pushed around before they come at you. They look gorgeous. I think we're going to be seeing them, even if I don't think they're going to be as good as their rules kind of make you think they might be. But they're just fantastic. Dark Angels is getting some gorgeous, gorgeous releases. In fact, let's talk about the other ones that have come out. The Legion Interremptors. Some people don't like the name. The name is Latin and it means something like those who kill, something like that. And it seems to fit. They've got a pretty cool 12-inch range plasma weapon themselves. So it's a plasma burner, 12-inch strength 4 AP2, assault D3 +1, which is pretty scary, to be honest. Ignores cover, which is amazing. Plasma flame. So again, reroll failed to hit rolls when on Overwatch. Now, interesting one with these. I haven't looked it up, but assault D3 +1. Do you roll for each individual gun or per unit? I think it's one of those things where I think if you roll per gun, it's fairer, but it slows things down because you just got to do it a number of times. The only good thing is they don't have, again, because they're strength 4, basically these are, the Dark Angel's got all the old tech, which is sometimes slightly better. So these are plasma that, are literally just had the danger turned down a little bit. So you don't get the high strength, but you also don't get the negatives as well, which is really cool. Again, 12-inch range means you're probably going to be in a vehicle or something to get up there because, all the time they're only in power armor, so they're going to just get shot to hell if they're walking across the table. And they're not cheap, 160 points for 5 of them, coming with the plasma burner. They're stubborn as well, which is really cool. What's really interesting is there's 5, but they may include up to 10 additional interrupters. So 5 to 15 is an interesting one. We'll see if that is the correct thing. I see no reason why not. 1 in every 5 can take a missile launcher, or with suspensor web, rad missiles, and stasis missiles, or a plasma incinerator with a suspensor web. And a plasma incinerator is basically an 18-inch heavy D3 +4 weapon of the same profile. So, here we go. Roll once for an entire unit before firing. There we go. It's in there. So, quite swingy, between 2 and 4 shots each. But, even 2 shots with that strength 4. Yeah, it's quite cool. AP2. They can have Phosphex bombs as well. The Prefectus, who's the champion. they can take for dedicated transport. An Interceptor squad numbering 10 models may take a Land Raider Proteus as a dedicated transport. That might be up to 10. That might be 10. I don't know. What's interesting is it means they can't have a Rhino. So if memory serves, they can't swap it for a normal drop pod in Deep Strike Assault. So they would have to have a Dreadclaw or something like that to be taken that way. So they're maybe covering some bases in that. They're cool. They can do some damage. They're also 3-up armor save. With the Terminators we talked about, they're 2-up armor saves, so they can maybe be risked a little bit more. But even then, this is heresy. Like, there's plenty of stuff that can take out Terminators. So these aren't. They're not like an obvious like. They have strengths and weaknesses, is what I'm trying to say. I think that's the best way of saying it, which looks good, and it'll be interesting to see how they fit in with the other rules as well. We don't get the full scope of what they can do, of course, until all their rules are out for the Legio. There is one small thing. So they're an elite. They're a Dreadwing Interemptor squad may be chosen as an elite squad, an elite's choice for a Dark Angels Legion's Astartes army. So they're Dreadwing. And I wonder if we get a Rite of War for Dreadwing, which maybe swaps where they go or something like that. But this shows you a little bit of what the Dreadwing could be about. Pulling stuff from different places is kind of very cool. As I say, we need the whole book to see the full story. The Inner Circle Knights Cenobium are an elite's choice for a normal Dark Angels Astartes army. So it's interesting to see how they're going to do that. Maybe the Interemptors are only for the Dreadwing, which would be quite cool. Or maybe there's different ways of doing things. I haven't even read that yet, to be honest. There's so much stuff going out. Keeping up with everything going on is it's quite a challenge with all the different game systems. Elite's choice. So maybe Elite's for them, and there's potential. Hopefully, fingers crossed, something like changing its role slightly. Maybe not. Maybe they're too good for that. Although there are a lot of points to be troops scoring unit. So who knows? Who knows? We'll see when the book comes. And then finally, we did get the Legion Aquitor Bombard with Graviton Cannon, and where we had the one with the missiles from last time, which did some funky stuff. This is just a Ordnance 1 large blast 5 inches, barrage, concussion, graviton pulse, haywire. So it's got some good rules, but they're not good enough. It's one shot. It's haywire. One haywire shot is not great. Graviton pulse is okay at best. It's only 24-inch range. The gun looks cool. I don't know how many people are going to be getting one of those with that setup, but they might do because it looks good. Who knows? I don't think it's anything to write home about in that form. One thing they did do with the spicular missiles is they've changed it. So it's when firing the spicular rocket system to choose a target point within range and line of sight. So you can choose a point on the ground, but you do have to see that point on the ground, which is good. So they've clarified that in the rules. But that's loads of cool stuff this month that's come out, toys-wise. We've got, on top of that, we got the Zone Mortalis bits and pieces that came out in their own separate things, if you want to do that. So releases-wise, I think it's been a good month. I will say, we'll get onto that in a second. One other item they put out for Horus Heresy on Warhammer Community was an article called Slay Your Demons, and this is one that I wrote. Essentially, I think so. I'll tie this in with some other stuff. There was an article. There was a Warhammer TV show on the 26th, I think it was, 27th, the Wednesday, whenever that was, at the end of the month. And Seb is a guy whose his remit is like Warhammer Community for Adeptus Titanicus, 30k, Necromunda, and Aeronautica Imperialis. And he went on there to talk about those games and to talk about kind of their plans for communicating with the public for those. And they understand the need to communicate better with the fans. They know that it's something we've all been asking for, and it's something that will help out. And I think we've seen this. I think I certainly, this is all just my evidence that I've seen of my own eyes, so it's limited to its scope. But we have, I've seen more talk about 30k. I've seen more talk about Adeptus Titanicus. I've seen more interest. I had people message me as soon as my article went up, things like that. There seems to be more of a buzz. People seem to be more aware of it, and it's the life in not just the game but the community as well, and that's an amazing thing. We have the Road to Thramos coming out the first Monday of every month as an article on Warhammer Community. They're doing the same with Necromunda. Is the second Tuesday of every month is Necromunda. The third Tuesday of every month is Aeronautica Imperialis. And the last Tuesday of the month is Engine Kill, is the 30k, is the Adeptus Titanicus content. So they've seen the value of what the Road to Thramos has done in building, not just in building up to the new book, but in terms of showing the community that they're there, that they're doing things, and getting more people drawn in. Interesting thing Seb said was that the 30k articles will probably change to the first Tuesday of the month from the second half of the year. So now this is her reading between the lines and maybe getting it wrong. That brings it in line with the other Tuesday articles, so that makes sense. From the second half of the year, it basically kind of said, when Thramas is done. So it said when Road to Thramas will change and come out that way. So there's, hopefully, I always thought it was going to be Q2 anyway for this book. Well, not always, but recently. So I think we'll be looking at towards the end of Q2 that the book drops. But hopefully we're going to get what they're doing with these other systems. And that, in Aeronautica Imperialis, they talked about asking people to write a scenario to put up that way and getting people's models on. Before my article at the end of last year, we had Pete Reese's White Scars on. It's all content that helps drive interest in the game. And as we know from 30k community, that's important. The next thing we need is the starter box, obviously, but we need people to know that the game is alive and kicking and people are playing it. And Seb seems to be very on the ball with that kind of thing and seems to be doing things very well. One thing they're doing for Necromunda is they've got a roadmap for this year that they've announced. So they've announced 4 books, one for each quarter of this year. We've had the Goliath one already. They've announced the Orlok and whatever the other 2 are, whichever order. So they've announced a book and 2 plastic models for that unit. Now they're trialling this, they're seeing how it goes down. I can see that they want to do, if it goes down well, and it has been, people have been very excited by it, then there's a potential that we get that for other game systems as well. And it be in different forms, I'm sure, because of the nature of releases and all that kind of thing. But I can only see that as a good thing moving forwards if we do get this roadmap. And it won't happen straight away, but I hope and believe that it will happen. He did say that the roadmap for Necromunda worked. One of its major things where it worked was when they announced the house book for Goliaths. They put out the roadmap and it already answered the questions of, well, are other houses going to get theirs? And the logical answer is yes, but this confirms it, so it stops them getting questions already. So that's an advantage for them. It also tells people immediately what the next 3 are. So you don't get, when's my book? You're still going to get people saying, why is my book the last? Someone has to be last. We know that. But it's already working for them in its answering questions before they start. So that's fantastic. He did warn that there is the reason they've done the amount of information they have is because if you do a roadmap, then you need to hit those spots. So over the 4 quarters, they have to make sure that the Goliath book comes out in the first quarter and the Orlok book comes out in the second quarter, and that, because if they don't, then they get probably fairly, they get grief for it. If you say you're going to do something in a certain period of time as a company and you don't do it in that time, then people will call you up on it. So the big thing is they haven't given you all the information. They've done the major points of that year. There will still be other Necromunda releases in those quarters, but it means you know the major ones. So this means as a House Escher player, you know that at some point you're going to get a House Escher book. Now, it may be that you plan your purchases accordingly. You know, like, okay, so our Escher book isn't in 2020. It'll be some point in 2021. Cool. I know I'm going to not get all my groovy toys till then, my expanded list and blah, blah, blah. What I might do is keep a little bit of money back for that, but I might actually start an all-out gang. Or if you're Delac and you know your book's coming third quarter, you might say, cool, okay, third quarter, I want to have enough money put by to buy the book, the 2 characters, and something else when I get it, maybe another box of models to then convert up. So you know you need roughly the price of 2 characters, a book, and a box of toys, and maybe that's 90 quid. So you start putting money away, 90 quid. So there's potential benefits to come there, and I think if that's in 30k, if they can turn around and say, and I don't know how it would work with 30k, it depends what they're doing, but if they could turn around and say, okay, quarter 1 we're getting 2 new vehicles. Quarter 2 we're doing, I don't know, we're filling in gaps in the range we're going to be releasing a new unit for Iron Warriors that hasn't been released yet. That kind of thing. Then you can plan releases around that. And I think that would be a good thing. Obviously, again, it won't be everything. But I think there's potential. I think what I've been calling out for this kind of stuff, listeners to the show will know that I believe that Warhammer community should have been used more and better in terms of 30k particularly, but other game systems as well. I think we're starting to get there. Having me on to do that article, not because it's me, but just because they had someone in the community doing an article, I think is another great thing. It gives us different perspective. It shows that the community's out there and the community sometimes thinks differently. And I'll go a little bit into it. I don't know how much I'm allowed to really talk about it, but I was asked to write an article, and actually I was allowed to put forward an idea for an article. And going forwards, like, not everything that I would suggest will be done, and not everything that GW asked me to do will be done either. I have to be happy with what I've written. The article that came out was I came up with the idea of writing about how to play against demons. They did suggest something like a Tactica might be good. I was thinking of other ideas and settled on this. I'm not very good at writing these things. It takes me a long time to whittle down what I've written. But the essence of the article was all mine. Like, almost all the words were mine. The editors there did do a few little bits and pieces. That's what you sign up for when you do these things. They didn't change anything. Like, the essence of the article was, as I say, was what I wrote. And that's cool. And as I say, when you do this kind of stuff, at the end of the day, they're putting it on their website. I'm not putting it on my website. So you have to play that game with them. But I know that when I sent it in, the person I sent it to thought it was a cool article. It seems to have gone down well. What's interesting is you've only got so much space. So, we've all been frustrated reading articles where Tacticas on these kind of things, they can't be in depth. And mine started out being in depth, and that's why I broke it down to just picking out some of the major features and some of the things you can do. And immediately saw people saying, well, actually, I think it was the initiative thing. It's like, well, everyone buys the effectively the discipline that gives you assault grenades for their demons. And I'm like, I actually replied to the guy. I was like, well, not everyone does. And but also, this isn't that article. This isn't an in-depth look into that article. This is an overview of just getting people to think about, if you're playing demons, don't expect legios. Something I've experienced and something other people have experienced. And part of the article is to do kind of that overview, but it's never going to be that detailed thing because of what it is. Part of the article is just to get people interested, to show actually there are demons out there. And I had a friend from America message me immediately and was like, so demons in 30k, how do they work? And he's got a demon army and he wants to use it in different games. And he's like, I can play 30k with this. Can I use this? Can I use that? Will it be acceptable if I do this? And I was able to go, yeah, you can do this and this. And it sparked a conversation, and that's fantastic. I think we're going to see more of this kind of thing. I need to. I've only got so much time. I've only got so much ability. I want to do more articles for them, and going forwards, hopefully we will, and we'll get stuff out there. And in that instance, I want your feedback for me, actually, on that article, and maybe what you think other articles might work well on that site. Bearing in mind, I'm not going to be able to sit there and paint a model and put it on there and have and inspire. Like, my painting won't inspire people to improve their painting on something. I can't take a model, build it, show steps of how I built it, and paint it. I'm an average Joe painter, so that's not my thing. So if it's tactics, if it's a bit of lore, something like that, then I'm quite welcome to take ideas on. And, I can go to GW and say, I've got an idea for an article, and they might not take it up. So I'm not saying I've got any of that kind of power or anything like that. But I just think it could be good to channel some of the community through me. Essentially, I'm doing this. Like, any mug can sit here with a microphone in their hobby room and talk. And that's what I do. And I'm lucky enough that some people think it's worth listening to. And thank you for thinking so. But I see myself as a channel. I saw there's been some interesting stuff going in the hobby. The comments section on Facebook is not always the nicest place to be on both sides of the fence. And I saw someone in a video say that they are a voice in the community. Sorry, a voice of the community. And my initial reaction was, no, you're not. As a podcaster, I see myself as a voice in the community. I don't speak for the whole community. What I try to do is see things from all sides of the community, but I can't. But I try as much as I can, and I have a voice, and I believe I wouldn't do this if I didn't believe I had something worth saying or something worth listening to. You all need a bit of ego to put yourself out there. That's fine. That's cool. I can accept that. But I don't speak for the community. I try to sometimes reflect what the community suggests. Sometimes I don't, because sometimes I think community might be wrong, but it's my voice. I just happen to have maybe a louder voice than other people. So I'm very aware that I am just a voice in the community. And yeah, I have certain paths to talk to GW that other people don't. And I've worked hard for those. I won't deny that. I won't shy away from that. I've talked to people in the right way, and I've met with people, and sometimes I've pushed, and sometimes I haven't. And I wouldn't say it's all luck. I've the way I've interacted with GW have meant they've chosen to interact with me. But if someone listens to this thinking, I know what would work really well, then message me, greg@theimperialtruth.com. Let me know what you think would work quite well. I might disagree. I might not take it up. I might do, and at the end of the day, GW might disagree with whatever I think as well. So, yeah, hopefully we're going to see more articles from other people within the community as well, not just me, because, I'm only one aspect of that. But, yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. Hopefully that was interesting. I don't know. Maybe it was a bit dull. But I think it's pretty cool to talk about personally. So, yeah, as I say, that's quite a lot of stuff to talk about this month, and just my voice to do it. So thank you for listening to that. But we'll take a break, and I'll come back and a little chat with Neil and James. Well, joining us now, we've got an old returning familiar voice in Mr. Neil. How are you doing?
Hello, Greg. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Very good.
And then someone others may have heard, but Mr. James from Siege Studios. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent stuff. I must admit, I listened to you on 40k Radio.
Oh,
that was
brilliant.
a while ago now, wasn't it? That was before Adepticon last year, I think. About this time.
It was, yeah. That was before Adepticon last year. So I hadn't been to the States before, so I was a bit apprehensive, to be fair. But
it was quite interesting listening to you talk about what you might possibly be getting into and up to at Adepticon, having similar conversations with Neil last year. About various things. Entertaining, shall we say? And C Studios, give us the elevator pitch for Siege Studios so people know where we're starting from.
Okay, Siege is a UK-based premium commission model painting service with a team of 30 painters who all paint from our bronze premium gaming level all the way up to platinum, which is a competition entry quality. That's what we do as a business. We also teach classes all over the UK, and we also, as a brand, because we're not just a business, we are a brand, we also have a branded painting competition, which is the first iteration this coming Saturday.
I was about to say, yeah, so that's the day after this releases, hopefully. That sounds good fun.
It would have just gone then by then.
yeah, that's it. And
I'll be a lot less stressed.
Well, yeah, but that's something that you're looking at doing more of going forwards as a thing.
Once a year, every February, we're going to be doing it.
There we go. Awesome. So we got some quality hobbyists on to join me with my trying to paint between the lines, which is always good to see. And I've seen Studios. You've been at lots of events now, haven't you? You go Salute,
Adepticon. We do quite a few.
Yeah, absolutely. And some lovely work from
Thank
you
very
guys,
much.
and we'll come back and plug that a little bit later on. But we've got you guys on. This is the second time Neil's talked about this subject because I managed to lose it the first time. I had the most horrible losing 2 segments in 2 consecutive shows. But you're going out to Adepticon, and I wanted to talk about what you guys are up to out there, the nature of running seminars at an event like that, because I just think it's interesting, frankly, and also it's one of those things that maybe people don't necessarily understand. Maybe they're a little bit apprehensive of doing something like that whilst at a convention, that kind of thing. So probably first we should outlay. So Neil, you went last year and you taught one session, was it?
Yes. No. Last year I went to Adepticon, and it was almost, for me, like a fact-finding mission.
Sure.
Obviously, I'd never been before. You were my guru in everything regarding booking hotels, flights, all the stuff that, it's hard to get your head around if you're coming from the UK, because to be honest, if you're going to a Warhammer Fest or something, it's pretty much buy your ticket and then you can drive to the event on the day. So it's pretty low admin. But going to America for a big convention it's a different kettle of fish. So it was a lot of trying to work. I mean, you knew all the ins and outs. You knew all the ways of when you had to book the hotel by, and what flights were the best flights to get, all that sort of stuff. And I went for the first time, and it so happened that James was going over that year as well, and a group of other painters as well. So there was about, how many of us in total, James? Was there?
Probably about 10, I think it was, about 10.
Yeah, there was quite a few of us, wasn't there?
Yeah, about 10, I'd say.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was my first year. So I didn't do any teaching or anything that year, and I found out from obviously some of the other guys who did do some teaching, and it seemed to be a very good way to to make the trip more affordable, because obviously flying to the States for a big convention like that, it's quite expensive. I know it's doubly expensive for James because he likes to exhibit at these things as well, and it did mean that you could get some more out of the event. You could pay for the hotel and a bit of the flights, etc., by teaching some courses. And I didn't quite realise at the time how many courses and teaching things were available at Adepticon. It's it's very different to things that I've been to in the UK, where you go to an event and it's a bit more of a trade show or a bit more of a, just seeing models and cabinets or whatever it might be. Whereas this is a whole other level when you go to Adepticon.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, part of it is not just about trying to make the money back. You guys, both of you guys, have done various things for the community. Neil, you put up videos, you put out little bits and pieces coming on the show, and James, Siege is out and about doing bits and stuff. You're putting on a painting competition, which I'm sure isn't going to make you millions and millions of pounds, is it? So it's not like you're doing this on a cynical money grabbing.
No, definitely not.
Be in a different business.
If you want to become rich, and rich and famous, it's definitely not the way to go. Is running painting classes. It's never going to make you a millionaire.
No.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So I just think it's important to put that out there, because sometimes from the outside looking in, people can think, oh yeah, you're getting this, you're doing that. If you were to put that money, if you were to put that time into something else, you'd get much better rewards on your efforts. But that's cool. So how was your first trip out there, James? What level of expectation did you have?
I wasn't sure, because firstly, the state, even though England is the mecca of the hobby, because obviously the majority of it started here, but at the same time, the States is 20 times bigger demographic in the sense of player base for a lot of the games. So it was very interesting, that fact for a start, and secondly as well, just going out there knowing that the convention, the attendance for the convention is ridiculous in the sense of how many people actually go. I think across the 4 days it's nearly 20,000, so it's quite a substantially large amount of customers, and also people that are going to be going for classes and all these different things. The States lives up to its reputation for everything being big. Obviously Chicago, famous for its pizza. A lot of my colleagues, partook in that very, very much so. Everyone's very, very friendly. Very much, they're super passionate into the hobby, super, super passionate about it. Obviously, there's the odd person here in England that's obviously very, very passionate about it, but it just seemed like everybody was majorly into it, and switched on hugely about everything. So it's really nice. It's really good.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a nature, if you're going to go to something like Adepticon, where it's 4 days full on. You're in a hotel. You're not going there, and it's not the best base of operations to go and check out Chicago, anything like that. So if you're there for a reason, and so that means you are getting the dedicated people. I think it's the same as if you go to a mixed event over here, say a Blood and Glory. You're not going there because it happens to be in a train shed in Derby, as it was last year. That's only got so much pull to it. You're going there for toy soldiers, so you're getting a hardcore of people in there. Also, I should say, Chicago very famous for its beef sandwiches, and if you didn't go to Portillo's last year, you should go this year.
I think we did. But I'm going to admit
we did.
Yeah,
you did.
We did go to Portillo's, yeah, but I don't
good.
So
slightly less appealing then.
Yeah. we went. I think, James, it was like one of the it was the day after. I think it was just after the event. I think
it was. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
I think Andy had thrown out. We went there, and it was. I was glad I went, because I think, Greg, you mentioned about going.
Yeah.
And I remember from you mentioning it that when we actually went there, I was like, "Wow, yeah, this place is cool."
Yeah, it's cool. But yeah, you got to eat meat to appreciate that. That's fair enough. So yeah, we've got. So what was Siege doing out there last year?
So Siege had a stand at Adepticon. We as a business, we want to always engage with the community as much as physically possible. I don't ever do anything sort of half-assed. So generally speaking, we flew 2 team members over there with myself and had a stand, and obviously paid money to have a stand at Adepticon to meet customers and meet people, and for people to see in the flesh the quality which we offer as a business.
Sure.
It's just, you can't beat talking to customers or potential customers in the flesh, like I'm an ex-recruitment consultant, and like not being funny, I find it very difficult and strange sometimes when you don't actually physically engage with people, if that makes sense. So yeah.
Oh, cool. And this year returning? Is it more of the same, or are you expanding
this
on
year's
that?
returning as well. Yeah, so I've actually got to be honest. I've got two businesses that are actually attending there. So I've got obviously Siege and also Artist Opus, which is my other business.
Of course.
So we've both got stands over there in Adepticon, which should be really good. But we're doing various different things over there as companies anyway. But it's just all about obviously engaging with customers and engaging with the community.
Was that an immediate decision? Like, how long into the Adepticon experience last year was that a decision that you're coming back?
Well, they came around with sheets asking if we wanted to have a stand next year, following year, and I gladly said yes straight away. So
they don't muck about, do they?
Yeah, they don't muck around. Yeah.
Well, you can't afford to. Yeah, they've got to sell out the space. They need that money and that guarantee of income to keep the thing going. It's not a cheap thing to do, is it?
100%. Yeah.
And obviously that's quite an investment because how many of your team are going over?
So this year it's just 3. It's myself, Joe from the office, and Simon, who's one of the painters that works on our Patreon. He's going to come in as well. So it's just 3 from Siege, and then there's 3 staff for Artist Opus as well.
Yes, that's quite a considerable outlay, though. Talking about
for flights and things.
Flights and time away, and all the other stuff that comes with that as well.
Yeah, I think it's because remain professional. Sponsoring an event is not really engaging with the community. Like you can, pay a percentage to the organisation or to the event to be like have your logo on a flyer or on the website or whatever. But you don't really engage with customers that way, and people buy from people. So it's having the presence there, the physical presence with staff is always going to be the best way of being.
Yeah, and obviously it takes that risk of investment to do that, and not everyone can do that either. But it's absolutely it's quite a cool thing to get done. Is Adepticon the first kind of event? Are you looking at any others, or is this down the line, or is this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd like to do like the Spiel. I'd like to do the various different conventions. I'd like to have a presence at. We're an international company like Siege, so we want to make sure that we hit all demographics and communities out there, basically. So we've got plans massive. I mean, Siege has doubled in size every year for the last 3 years, and we're 7 years old as a business. So we want to be engaging with community as much as physically possible. That's why we're doing things like Iron Skull, and we're doing things to increase the knowledge of the brand and the business.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. And Neil, so from last year in your fact finding mission and jumping in and doing this and hanging out with much cooler painters, you're now you've got 2 classes, is it?
Yeah. So I was speaking with everyone else, decided to run some classes and had to find out how to go about that as well. So I spoke to some of the other painters. They put me in touch with some people. So decided to run 2 classes this year. One was I've teamed up with Matt Kennedy, who we've had on the podcast before.
Yeah,
we did a Golden Demon review with him, and teamed up with him. So we're doing 2 classes. One was painting orc flesh, which was painting, an orc head effectively, all the skin that you need to do and other bits and pieces. And then doing a basing class based on the, I've spoken about it a lot in the past, the model board stuff that I use a lot for my bases, doing a class on that, how to use it, making a base, using plinths, etc. And just one that hopefully will be relatively easy to do, and people will get a bit out of. And it's gonna be fun. Looking forward to it.
What's that? What's it called? The basing stuff?
Well, it's got lots of names. Some people call it Uriel. Some people call it model board. Some people call it chemiwood.
Sure.
It's got a ton of names. It's pretty much the stuff that a lot of model makers will use to make models out of. It's very easy to shape and mould and drill and file. It works very well on if you're making stones and steps and things like that for a base. It's the hardest thing about it is often getting hold of it. But once you've got hold of it, usually you have a very large supply because you buy it in bulk.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be cutting it down into sheets for people to use. So hopefully they'll get to play around with it and create some cool bases.
So what are the challenges in doing a class like that? 4,000 miles, 3,500 miles away?
Well, the hardest thing, to be honest, the basing one's probably the harder one to organise.
Right.
The big problem is obviously got to take everything over there. So I've got to take over all the material.
Sure.
But with the basing one, I need to take over the tools for people to use to make it as well. So I can't just expect people to bring a really long-winded kit list of you need this knife, this. But so I'm going to have to take over equipment to be used, and of course, then you've got all the problems with then transporting that equipment, as you can imagine, going through airports.
Yeah.
So there's those elements to it. The painting ones are simpler because you're after brushes and paints, and the models themselves you can just put in a suitcase, so it's pretty easy to sort those things out. So I'm doing a fair bit of prep. I've even bought myself a bandsaw so I can cut down all the borders as tidy as possible to make things easy for myself. And I'm trying to do some PDF documents for people to take away with them. So hopefully that'll, if they get nothing else out of the lesson, they'll be able to sort of take something home and hopefully practice and get better. But it's certainly quite tricky to do it so far away. Myself and Matt did run like a test course over in the UK. We ran a painting one at Bad Moon, and that was really to gauge to try it out and gain some opinions on what works, what doesn't work, and trying and we got a lot of useful feedback from that of parts of the painting steps that people felt were unnecessary and parts that they wanted to know more on. So I'm sure you do it, James. I know you teach painting classes, and I know that it's about finding what works and
100%.
and finding what people want to learn about as well. Because there's no point you sitting there for an hour talking about something and then they turn around and say, "Well, I don't really care about that," and exactly. you wanted to get something out of it.
No, 100%. You're bang on, absolutely bang on with that.
And talking there about travelling, taking stuff over, and I suppose there are risks to taking stuff to the airport with you, as you said. There, the other option is to post it over beforehand, which again, you're relying on courier companies, and you hear some horror stories from the US about some of the stuff that happens. I mean, some of the ones over here are bad enough, or you could, get those products while you're out there, but then that's you've either still got to get them back or you leave them out there, so that's a cost as well. These are all things you've got to think about, I suppose, from your side of things, James. You're taking over, as a company that's going to show off how well you paint miniatures. You've got to take miniatures over there, or are you getting some from people from the States that you've got working for you as well?
No, we only have every single member of the team is UK based.
Oh, they are. Okay, sorry.
We don't have any painters outside of the UK.
Sure.
We just as a matter of policy, we don't. And that's really just because I can't get in a car and go to America. But we take stuff over with us. Like you've mentioned. I mean, parcel services aren't exactly my best friend, to be perfectly honest. But generally speaking, we take stuff over with us. We don't normally take. We never really take like client commissions or we've got in the studio or anything like that. We always take personal models or we take models that the business has just got. But even still, I mean, I took one of my personal armies over there last year, and it got absolutely annihilated in one of the bags that we took. That's just something you just have to, I suppose, unfortunately, just deal with. But there's a lot of infrastructure and a lot of stuff, like even for like AO, like the brushes and stuff. There's a lot of planning and preparation for that as well. It's so much goes into it just to make sure that you get the stock there on time or the models there okay without being damaged. I barely took any clothes last year and just took models, to be fair. So it's my suitcase was heavily laden with plastic crack. So yeah.
And I'm sure there are people saying, oh, boo-hoo. But, and when you're not asking for, like, and we're not doing this to ask, to engineer any compassion from people, but it's just people travelling at any point. These are considerations for, not just the gamers, but everyone who's going there for anything else as well. And just thinking that down the line, you never know who's listening to this, who might, they might decide, actually, yeah, I can do X at an event. And there are just all those little things you have to just think about. And it must be, I know Neil carrying his little models in his clear tray, his clear box, just so that he got through.
I have that worked a treat.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a very good case. I'll give you that.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think he wanted to show him off more, because that's Neil, isn't it? So
the most embarrassing thing is when people will come up to you and go, "Wow, that's amazing," and then they look at the case and they don't look at the models.
Yeah, seen it all before. But yeah, that's cool. How much, James? How much of the show did you get to see last year?
Yeah, quite a bit. I'm very hands-on when it comes to being on like the stand. I'm very much a leader, not a boss. Like I don't like just telling other people to do stuff. I like rolling my sleeves up and getting mucky. But I did manage to have a good walk around the show, and it's honestly like you see shows in the UK, and you obviously go to conventions if you've been to Salute, or any of you listening that have been to Salute, or maybe even UK Games Expo and places like that, and you think that they're massive, but you don't know anything until you've seen one of the shows in the States. Saying they do everything bigger is no joke. It's a very, very big show, lots and lots of people, and there's plenty of traders. You could spend the whole day just perusing through the shops, to be perfectly honest with you. So it's very, very good. Yeah,
definitely. We just don't have the facilities over here. It would cost a lot more to do the equivalent over here. Just nature of the beast. My first trip over for gaming was to Gen Con, and if you think Adepticon's anything, then Gen Con is the beast. I'm sure, I think Spiel's bigger than Gen Con, but it's just manic, absolute manic in a crazy cool way. But you definitely need very good shoes for any of those, especially if you're going to be standing on those concrete floors for a long time. But yeah, that's super cool. The fact that you want to go back, it's really hard. I think Neil does Adepticon like 100% different to the way I do Adepticon. Everyone's going to have their different styles of how they do things. I barely left the hotel. Neil, you were off downtown doing bits and pieces and whatever, weren't you?
The funniest thing I thought actually was obviously you were sort of babysitting me through to the we went to the airport together. We got on the same plane. We're sat like virtually next to each other all the whole way. It was quite funny how when we got there, it was just like we both just went, we want something different out of this event. Obviously, you're focused on gaming. You want to see the Heresy games and stuff like that. And I was straight to looking at finding out about the Crystal Brush, looking at, what's going on. Then obviously meeting up with the other painters and having a very different experience. But it's such a big event that you can just literally just go off and do what you want to do. And there's plenty of it to do. I think a lot of other events in the UK, you sort of go, okay, well, I've done that. Okay, well, I've done everything. I think I'll go home. But you just literally is endless things to do. Adepticon, it's just crazy. Even just the whole painting area underneath those stairs.
Even 3 o'clock in the morning.
Just literally 3 o'clock in the morning. I walk back and go, oh, people are still painting. People are still up and talking. Oh my god! You expect it to be shut down, and there's still something happening. It's just amazing.
Yeah, or having a party, or whatever they're doing in that painting area. It looks like Kat's got. I think she's still taking it on this year. Got some cool ideas for that going forwards. I'm gutted. I'm not gutted. I'm going to miss it. We're having a baby far too close to the dates.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. But I know that at whatever time in the morning that it is that I'm up and I'm seeing all the tweets, all the Facebook posts from Adepticon, I'm going to be sitting there going, I wish I was at Adepticon, because that's what happened the year I went to the LVO. So I was like, I need to go to Adepticon because it is just fantastic. Do you? We've got Golden Demon going back to America for the first time, and Neil and I talked in depth about our views on Crystal Brush last year, and stoked some fires with that. And we voiced our opinion that Crystal Brush is a much I don't know how to describe it. The rule set of how the winner's judged is maybe a little bit more codified and clearer, I think. There's less obfuscation around the models themselves and the process, I think. Would you enter something like that, James?
Guys? I entered last year like Crystal Brush, but I think I don't know, when you add online public voting and also money into the equation, I think that it actually detracts from what it is. I think sometimes, in my opinion, I don't know. Like I think with anything, when you include money into it, I think it causes problems, to be perfectly honest, and that's just me being honest. Because I think things can be misconstrued, or it changes the whole dynamic of something. You know, I don't know. Like I thought there weren't as many entries as I thought there was going to be last year, being honest with you. And I didn't really get to see how the judging was done, but I think it was done quite quickly, if I'm honest.
Well, you had an inside track, didn't you, to the judging, which a lot of people, because you were on a stand, you saw the judging process more than anyone else did.
Remaining professional, in remaining professional, it just wasn't judged how I would expect a competition to be judged.
Sure.
So
I think
that's the only way I can explain it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We won't, absolutely won't push, and there's going to be different opinions on that, I'm sure. I think you're right. When money's involved, the structure of whatever that event is needs to be as tight as you can make it. And within wargaming, I don't think I've seen events that are tight enough to really have that kind of level of money involved, whether that's painting and I've only got a very limited, a view of painting competitions, but I think you could say that Golden Demon judging's done on quite a tight time scale as well. I think, to be fair.
Yes and no. I think it varies. I think the thing is the best analogy I've got for it is whenever a captain drives a ship, it always goes a different direction. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think that's the way you got to look at it. It varies all the time.
Yeah.
It's never linear.
No, that's fair enough. I think in a perfect world you'd have more time.
Yeah.
You see those guys grabbing models out, and they're very experienced at what they do, so they could do it a lot quicker than the average Joe anyway. But but I think the prize money and the fact that it's then prize money given out by a company that want to do things. There's a lot of conflicting bits in there when you're putting so much stuff up online, and I think. Well, from speaking to a couple of people out there, the nature of the way this competition works means that people didn't put as many models in.
It
wasn't.
I think we can agree on that.
And it is what it is at the end of the day. And I take nothing away from the quality of painters who won, because they're all outstanding at what they do, and they painted to the rules of that competition to try and win it. And that's that's all any competitor can do, isn't it? Is you do what
100%.
Do what you do.
I think the biggest thing I took from Crystal Brush is seeing is believing.
Yeah.
And when you see actually how what the competition actually looks like, and you actually see these entries, and then you see how things progress, it opens your eyes a bit. I think they're very good at made it look very different. How online. I perceived it very differently when I saw it everything up close and personal. I was like, okay, so this is how the competition works.
It was portrayed in a very stereotypical American manner, in that it was all very shiny and everything else, and it looked great, and maybe it's like an image that's been photoshopped in a magazine. Like, actually, is what you're looking at fully what you're seeing, kind of thing. And whatever, cool. They've chosen to do something the way they do it. I wouldn't have done it that way. The big thing for me was seeing Neil, Richard, Andy Wardle going, these people we had on a pedestal, they're very good, but they're not much better than me. and that was and I think that's I think that from the comments I said, we said this last year. The comments I saw online afterwards, people were put off painting because of what they were seeing on the website.
Yeah,
and that website wasn't necessarily a true reflection of what was happening, and so people saying literally, "I can't believe you do that. That's unbelievable." And it's like, well, it is unbelievable because actually it's proven to be unbelievable. And it also just shows. I think there's unintentionally or intentionally in all walks of competition, there is potential for an elite level to try and maintain the fact that they're at an elite level, and it's not always an intentional thing. I'm not suggesting it is, but you see it in things like football, like Man United and Man City and Liverpool at the moment will try and do what they can to keep the other teams down and out of the way. And that can happen. I say that can happen intentionally, or it can happen unintentionally. And what happened last year was I saw a lot of those barriers being broken, which I think is only a positive.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, so that's going to be cool. Obviously, there's going to be a quite a Games Workshop presence there. I'm assuming they're going to need to take over a few people to be doing that. On top of, there's going to be a 2-hour seminar. Preview seminar?
Yes, the preview one. Have you got your ticket to that, James?
No. When'd you get it?
You have to get it on the Adepticon website. You need to. It's a free ticket, but you must register on the website for the free ticket.
Yeah, the Wednesday night. What I would say is, if you don't have a ticket, you could still turn up to the door. The chances are not everyone with a ticket will turn up.
Yeah, and they're more than likely, once a load of people have gone in.
Have they gone on sale already?
Yeah, they would have gone on when all the other tickets went up, I would have thought.
Yeah, there was, I can't even remember how many thousand they released. It was loads, wasn't it?
Quite a lot.
2,000 or something ridiculous.
I believe so. They put.
But yeah, I only realised it myself by looking at I think a Warhammer community post.
Oh.
And I thought, okay, yeah. And I quickly clicked on, and obviously it's a free ticket, so you don't have to actually, you just sign up for it and say, yes, I want to go, and they put it against your name. So
I didn't realise that, so I lost out, unfortunately.
Well, as I say,
I think still tickets available. I think they're still on there. So
yeah, they're doing a huge space, and yeah, as I say, the chances are you'll be able to get in anyway. But yeah, I think they're promising something for almost everything. So there's an energy. You were at the last one, weren't you, Neil?
Yes.
There's an energy in that room, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because all that stuff gets put up online afterwards. But it
felt very like that whole. We spoke about it feeling like feeling big and American. It felt very, very big and very, very American. There was lots of cheering and people going mad for when the stuff was coming out. And it was great to see the stuff coming up. I felt very jet lagged and felt very quiet and didn't really partake. But it was there is an energy in the room when they're doing their presentation and they're talking about all the cool new stuff. And I seem to think like last year it was quite a big presentation. I seem to remember it going on for quite a while. I think it's going to be. They're saying this is going to be the biggest one ever. So I can imagine we're going to be in there for quite some time.
Well,
2 hours, I think it is.
Yeah, they've said 2 hours. Also from ages ago, like I'm talking before November, I think. Certainly before Blood and Glory, I had people involved with GW saying you don't want to miss this seminar. You don't want to miss this Adepticon. It's going to be big. And I'm like, yeah, cheers. But, these things happen.
Rub it in.
How much, obviously, Games Workshop are going to be there they're there in force, but they're not the only games company there. James, how much do you deal with the other games companies kind of stuff? Private Press and people like that?
Being honest with you, we really don't.
Right. Okay.
We'd like to do other stuff, but we're probably, I'd say, non-GW is probably about 4% of our business.
Blimey.
And it's not for a lack of any of us not wanting to paint that kind of stuff. Like like you give, I don't know, Ben or any of the guys that have done historicals like Late War Fallschirmjäger from Bolt Action, and they'll bite your hand off to do it. But the truth is that Siege is stigmatized as a 40k studio, which isn't a bad thing given it's one of the most dominant games out there. But the other thing is that it's just I think people just think that we just paint 40k, which is a bit frustrating. But we do everything.
Sure.
But yeah, like we don't really do much. I mean, I don't think in 7 years we've never had an Infinity commission. We've done Bolt Action, we've done quite a few different independent games, like the odd one here and there. But yeah, generally speaking, we don't get non GW as much as we would love to, unfortunately.
So obviously, when people are commissioning armies, there's a lot of discussion back and forth about what you're doing. Do you get a real good feel of what this army, why they're having this army, what it's for, things like that? Do you find?
Sorry.
So, no, carry on.
I would say everything is agreed in principle in a spec sheet and signed off. And once it's signed off, they can't change it without a payment for amendments, basically. I'm not being frank. I'm not much of a Wimbledon fan, and going backwards and forwards via email, or changing specifications once it's been engaged isn't something we tend to do. No. We make sure that our clients have got normally everything exactly as they want compared to what they've paid for in advance, so that it's agreed in principle before a painter even goes near it.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. It's and being clear is an important factor. That as soon as you've got a little bit of grey area, it can cause big problems. No matter what business, but certainly when people are spending reasonable sums of money with you, and the timescales and everything else involved in that. Do you get a feel that competition 40k is a big driver of people coming to you, or is there a good mix of people who just want a nice collected army and things like that?
It's a bit of a mix, I'd say. I mean, competitive. We're fortunate enough to work with quite a few well-known YouTube channels. Paint stuff for them for their for the games that they play and stuff like that. So we do get, I've just seen this army or this list, or I've just seen this, on this channel. Could I have that army or exactly as it is on the video, or could I have this but tweak it to this? So we do get a lot of competitive gamers that do come to us. But the thing is we are not the fastest. Being frank, I'm being honest with you, we're not the fastest in delivery of product, because we're all about the quality and the highest quality commissioned studio in the industry, in the sense of commercial business, if that makes sense, not an independent person in their room or something like that. So we tend to get a good mix of armies for collectors. A lot of our clients are working professionals. We target working professionals as our key demographic because they are, I'd say, probably 70% of our clientele. 30% are gamers, I'd imagine, that do collect armies for gaming. But that's typically our split on sort of demographic. We really go for working professionals, and we do a lot of work for sort of collectors. As we've got numerous clients sort of like in the Far East that have got their favourite characters painted, or or things like that, and build up a collection of display models. That tends to be more what we do, rather than the armies that you see that we do are for either collectors or are for gamers, but the split is more so towards collectors and gamers, basically.
Sure, yeah, and that demographic makes sense when you look at I'm sure we all know plenty of different types of gamers, but having the money and the and not having the time are two of the major factors, aren't they, in getting it? It's not cheap to get an army painted by someone.
No. And
even to a bad level.
You're buying time. You're not buying anything else. It's the commodity that you don't get back.
Absolutely.
And that's what your materials and paints. They obviously cost a bit of money, but it's not the thing that you really are purchasing. And experience and ability behind the brush is purely in time invested as well. So.
Absolutely. I was about to say it's not just the hours of painting, it's the ability and the skill that go with that have had to be developed over time. If I could paint as well as Neil could, I would I would be happy to lower the standards below what Neil can paint and get whole armies done, but I can't do that, and I'm slow as well. So
it's a sort of a curse though, because when you can get to a certain level, you don't ever want to lower the level, because whenever you paint, you think, I can do this better. That's something I always find whenever I've tried to do something quickly. Is it starts off with I'll do this quick and clean and dirty, sort of just get it done, and halfway through you find yourself finicking and trying to I'll just make that a little bit nicer, and I'll just put a couple more colours into this mix and make that nicer, and then suddenly you find that you're back to sort of trying to make everything perfect again. So it is I think I think everyone generally probably paints to pretty much their best, I'd say, most of the time. I think that you're very blessed if you can just say, I'm just going to do this and I don't care.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think you're right. As I say, even myself, it took me a while to get to a point where I was happy to say, you know what, this army is going to be painted. Not, it's just going to get painted, and I'm going to use methods that aren't necessarily the best I can do, but are the most effective for the time I want to spend on those models. That's a hard thing to do. Absolutely. I lost what I was going to say there. So we've got what's quite interesting about commission painting is I see a lot of talk about it online at various points, and you see people bemoaning commission painting, which always astounds me. And you see people who are experts on commission painting. There's a lot of them online, as there are a lot of experts for everything. From your point of view, James, how much bull is spoken?
Remaining PC, lots. So I've painted and done commissions since I was probably about 15, 16. I had a break like everyone did. I was involved in music for quite some time. And then when I came back to it, obviously I started that again pretty much. A lot of my friends were still playing, so they asked me to start doing it for them again, and it kind of went from there. But long story short, the industry is very much like the Wild West, and using that analogy, there are cowboys out there, there are professional companies out there, but the one thing about this specific industry that's very different, or two things, is first of all, our whole entire community and demographic came from John and Fred in their shed. Okay, so it is perceived as a hobby. Okay, and the moment you introduce the word hobby into anything that's trying to be done as a business, it devalues it, and that's frankly why you don't find the word hobby on any Siege social media or literature or anything, because we are a fully registered UK business with solicitor, accountants, office staff, everything, and we're the only company in the UK that are registered like that. The rest tend to be a mix of, specifically in the UK, it tends to be obviously people working from home, or one-man bands and things like that. But the industry is very much like the Wild West. There's no governing body, no accreditation, no, and again, this is where it kind of goes a bit, not strange, but it kind of gets a bit more convoluted, is where there is no perceived set level. The word, we paint, our minimum level is an above tabletop, which we call a premium gaming level, which is bronze. But tabletop from person to person to person varies. And then we add in the mix of that painting miniatures is an art form and also a trade if you're doing it as for commission, because it's a skill that's developed over time. So the thing is that with all of that in the mix, you unlike a plumber or electrician or carpenter that has to go through training and accreditation to do things at a certain level, Timmy can just set up in his room and say he's a commission painter, and there's no set standards or levels that he has to adhere to. He just paints what he does, and that's it. So it's been very difficult, over the last 7 years, building Siege as I have done, and building Siege to where it is to this day and where it's going. I have to pay out a lot of money, 4 figures annually, to Trustpilot to have Siege registered as a Trustpilot business with a third party. No other company in the industry internationally has got that. And again, because it is, as I say, like the Wild West, and there's no standardization at all whatsoever. For a consumer perspective, it's very hit or miss, and that's before I even get onto the realms of eBay Pro Painted, which I won't talk about.
I was about to say Pro Painted. That is always my favourite term on eBay. Because it's like everything is Pro Painted. Doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, the stigma that goes with that the stigma is quite factual, being honest, not trying to come across the wrong way. The industry, as I said, is a very hit or miss thing, and you are only you get what you pay for, and at the same time, you have to. What I would say to any person who's listening, or anyone who would potentially engage any company in commission, is do your research massively, look for reviews, and not for ones that maybe are on their website that could be misconstrued or could be generated by the company or by the individual. That's why, as I said, we use Trustpilot, and we pay a lot of money out to Trustpilot every year to have a third-party review system that gives us that accreditation in the industry above everybody else. We are, for all intents and purposes, trying to remain as humble as possible. We are the sort of Ferrari or Apple of painting companies. That's what we are, by the caliber of staff that we've got, and also the way that what we put out and what we finish as our minimum, all the way up to our highest standards. And with that, hopefully the third party reviews that we have do back up that, quite well. But that's what I would say. The industry is very much, very much like the Wild West. I honestly, the thing that really gripes me is when people say it's I charge the cost of the box times 2 or something like that. I mean, how is that quantifiable? How do you even work out your time based upon multiplying the cost of the box? Do you know what I mean? It's very very hit or miss. That's what I'd say. So if anyone listening, do your research, look for reviews. Actually look at the pictures on the websites or where you're looking to find someone, and make sure that you get to see the models from all angles and from every angle as well, because another thing you'll find is there's always that golden angle that's photographed or videoed, but the rest of the model isn't shown, which is very commonplace. Again, our YouTube channel has videos on it that are me talking over the models, and I show the models from every angle, every direction, every single bit of detail, so that there's nowhere to hide and nowhere to run away from. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I would strongly advise to anyone who's not specifically Siege, because I don't want to sound like I'm just trying to ram my business down your listeners' ears, but whenever you think about it, you just do a lot of research and look for decent reviews that are factually correct.
A long time ago we did an episode on commission painting, or a section on commission painting, and because there are lots of independent businesses out there, guy at home painting. There are lots of them who do good work. It's the problem is finding those ones who do good work and finding those ones who aren't necessarily as reliable, and that's not necessarily an intention to be unreliable either. There are people out there who will try and take your money, and then there are people out there who just might be unreliable. So there's a whole swathe of different things, but any good commission painter will be willing to put in the time and effort to make sure things are right. To talk to you, so that communication, like the signs are, if they're not communicating very well or being or you feel they're holding something back, then I would say walk away.
100%.
Things like being able to show you models and all that. There are a number of things in there, and price. If something sounds too cheap, I would say there are people out there who just don't value their time that much.
Correct.
And so you can get a good deal out of that, but it could also be a warning sign that you might not be getting a professional service that you think you're getting.
The other thing that just to touch upon it, the thing that it does bring a lot of laughter to me and the guys in the office is that we get people ask us and say, look, and I mean, humbly, like, if I send you 3 times the amount of models I want to get done, is it any cheaper? Well, the reality is that you're wanting more models done, which means more time, but you want it for less. It's the funniest thing ever, and that's because, and again, it goes back to the thing, because time is not this physical manipulative thing that you can manipulate or physically see or hold in your hand, because it passes whether you choose to care about it or not. People don't value it. They just don't, and unfortunately, that's just something that a lot of our clients and potential clients learn from day one is that time is the thing they are buying from us. It's not the paint materials or anything like that. It is the experience, which is time spent wisely and also time of actually doing the models.
I'll tell you what, I'm guilty of this with artists and buying art as well. I balk at prices because that's who I am. But also sometimes I forget that I treat time as a commodity in the same way as metal.
Yeah.
And fair enough, if you're buying a ton of metal in whatever form and you buy a second ton, you can reduce the margins on that because all you're doing is placing that one order for double the amount. But as you're right, doubling the amount of models takes double the amount of time. There's no way to shorten that gap within what you're doing. And it's a very easy mistake for people to make. And this is when I think you see the unreasonable people online. Sadly, I saw one of the artists on Twitter, Veronica, I think it is, posting up someone who took umbrage with her prices and failed to see what they were saying. And all that. On saying that, would you? I can give you lots of exposure if you paint an army for me. But yeah, I think commission painting is one of those places where value is a greater driver than cost.
Yeah, of course, 100%. Yeah, and again, just to touch upon it, I've got nothing against independent painters in their rooms and all that kind of stuff at all whatsoever, because I take my hat because that's where I started 7 years ago. But the thing is, as I said, the industry, our industry, from a business perspective, is about 5 to 7 years behind other industries commercially. And what I mean by that is, because it is stigmaed with the word hobby, and it is about the community and sharing and all this kind of stuff, and that there are some out there that say that hobby should be free, or the hobby, and stuff like that. It is getting more and more commercial, and the disparity between businesses in the industry. Take, for example, let's just think of a model company, compared to Games Workshop. Games Workshop are leagues ahead of every other miniature manufacturer in the industry. All right, leagues, and that's miniature design and also all these other things. Commercially as well, they're on the FTSE. They were on the FTSE 100. They are on the FTSE 250. But there's no other company in our industry that's a miniature manufacturer that's even close to being on the FTSE 250.
Absolutely.
It's very interesting. And I said, commercially, it is 5 to 7 years behind because people don't see it as an environment where businesses should be thriving, whereas they should be. So it's a very interesting one. As I said, I come from a recruitment background, so I've had the business head before I've tried to make it into a business, if that makes sense. So it's very interesting that you see things and you see businesses that, with all the will in the world and all the best intentions, have the potential to do extremely well and become a massive company, but don't, because it's treated as a hobby, not as a business.
Sure.
Which is a really, really, really big shame. So yeah. And
it's the kind of thing where if you had to rent, if everyone doing it had to rent a shop space, on a high street or on a back street of a thing, you would soon see them fall away because they wouldn't be able to maintain the costs that are associated with them. But because you can do it out of a back room, if you want to do it that way, you can get by with it. In fact, I've seen this with miniature companies. There's one particular miniature company where I kind of, every few months there's a kind of an appeal to spend money on their shop, and part of me thinks every time they do it, it's like at some point, like if it's that tight, and it's horrible because it's a hobby, because it's a dream job, and it's a real vocation, that they don't want to step away from it, and then part of me screaming out, but if it's that tough, then maybe it doesn't work. And that's where you draw that line is individual, and outsiders don't have the full story and all that jazz. But I worry for those people, and you're right, without any regulation, without any kind of with a lot of people going into this without a business mind as well, because they can paint quickly. That's what they think they can do. I do worry about some of these people who do get into it and and you look at what they're painting and think. I mean, I remember one of the first guys I talked to, I told him to raise his prices. Like, he raised them 3 times, and I was still saying you're too cheap for what you're doing. You know, and stuff happened with that one and whatever. But every time I was like, no, it's too cheap. You need to be paid more.
Yeah.
And there's a fear. I think there's a fear because it's hard. Like, it's hard to. A lot of people again don't value themselves. It's hard to say I'm worth £15 an hour, or I'm worth £12 an hour or £10 an hour. Like, people are like, well, I'm only really worth 5 or 6.
The thing is that, like, you know, there's a market. As much as I say it now, there's a market for every person, because at the end of the day, you know, there are people that don't want to pay, that don't value time, and that do only want to pay a proportionate amount. You know, and for those people, there are painters that will work for that amount or for those amounts. You know, but any of the guys at Siege will tell you, you know, that I built this company from a painter first before a businessman, and everything was designed in the painter's interest, because that's what I am before the business hat goes on. And I wouldn't have any of them pick up a brush for anything that for any amount or time investment that I wouldn't be prepared and happy to do so myself.
Well, and cynically, you know, if you want to be cynical about this, it's not worth you putting them through stuff which is going to drive them away.
No, exactly.
And that's what will happen if you're not treating them right, or an independent isn't treating himself right. You know, all stress and everything else, non-enjoyment of what you're doing, will kill that buzz as well, and make it impossible to go on. And it's quite funny because, you know, when you said do research on the companies, any successful company is going to have bad reviews. Yeah. All right. You know, just look at Games Workshop and how many people hate them. For 100%. For almost nothing.
There's always a disgruntled villager. That's the way to explain it. You know, and again, it's just saying, even us that have been on Trustpilot for a year or two, I think it is now. I can't remember exactly when we first joined up, but you know, we have a 96% rating on there with 1 or 2 negatives, and being frank, without going into too much details, and again being unprofessional, one of them was purely because something wasn't put on a spec sheet that was signed off,
right?
And the expectation was that it was going to be done outside of the spec. Well, no, if it goes on the spec and it's done, that's what the spec sheet's for. You know, so you unfortunately, again, you can't please everybody.
No.
There are going to be every successful company, you said, will have negative and positive, but you've just got to look at the variables and look at how many positive they have to how many negative, and that should give you an overall picture of the business.
Yeah, and where those positives and negatives affect you, like, you know, there are some very good companies that I won't use for specific reason because it doesn't gel with me, and that's fine. And any decent company is going to say, "Cool, you know, find someone who suits you better."
Exactly.
Because it doesn't.
It's a consumer market. Like you can, you know, if you're buying a car, you go to various garages. If you're buying, if you want to buy clothes, you go to different shops. You know, it's the same thing. You know, it's a consumer-driven market, and then the shops you go to are determined on the price you want to pay. Do you know what I mean? So,
and it doesn't do anyone any good to chase business that doesn't want them as well. You know, you know, and over time, you know, commission painting has been around a long time now. As you say, it's still behind, but you know, you go back a long time ago. There's a whole scope of different ways of doing things, and you will find the one that's suited to you.
Correct, 100%.
I know from my point of view, if I had more money, a few years ago, I'm one of those. I've got an annoying personality where I'm like, I'm not very good at it, but it still needs to be my painting. Where actually now, I think I've kind of lessened on that, and I've chilled a little bit more on my hobby in terms of what I need to do and how good it needs to be, you know, in inverted commas, and the standards of expectations, should I say, of what I should be doing in the hobby. And if I suddenly landed a dream job, then I could imagine me sending a lot of stuff off to get commission painted. Yeah. You know, and as you said, well, you know, I'm probably your target demographic, aren't I? You know, I'm telling, you know, I'm 39 and settled and working hard and playing a lot of toy soldiers with not enough time to paint all the models.
That's exactly it. Yeah, no, that's it. Our core commodity is time, whether it's what we sell to you in the sense of what you're buying, or whether it's what we help you to get more of. That's it. And then unfortunately, well, I say unfortunately, but fortunately for me and for Siege and for for others in the industry that are at that position, that that's the nature of the industry and the good thing about the industry as well as the other things. And I just want to say as a caveat, and I have the utmost respect for individual painters that pride themselves in what they do and do their own thing from home. I've got the utmost respect for it because that's where I started from. And as long as you do have pride in the work that you do and you are working for producing quality product, then my hat's firmly taken off to you. You know what I mean? But as I said, in every Western, there's always a criminal. So
and you will find that odd person who is treating their commission painting as a hobby as well. I think it's important to say, every now and then you get someone who's like, I just really want to paint Archeon. I do it at a ridiculous price because I just want to paint it.
Yeah.
So there are those things out there, but as you said, do your research because if Joe blogs from a random person you've never heard of before, who you can't find a single person who's done something for him, tells you he can do an amazing price for lots of models, you just send him the money, he'll buy it all, then maybe that's a little bit, maybe test him out with one model first, or before you send hundreds of pounds to someone. That kind of thing. So
100 million %.
I wonder if there's a price scale that could ever pay for Neil's speed in painting. You work that one out now?
Well, I was just thinking to myself how much my time would cost to get a competition piece ready, and it's a lot of money. It's a hell of a lot of money. But
Tokyo
I suppose it's like anything, though. When you're it depends on what standard you're pushing yourself to.
Yeah.
But I know that if, say, I found when people add money to the equation and say, I want you to paint this, I'll pay you for it. For me, when it becomes a job, it is that much harder to do. And then it does become more of a factory, right, I need to do this and I need to get it done.
Yeah.
I think I do procrastinate a lot on a competition piece because I'm constantly trying to review it, edit it. Is that right? Is that not right? And I think that I probably cause myself a lot of pain when it comes to painting.
Not even just money, even a competition entry to give away on a podcast can take a while, can't it?
Yes,
it
can do indeed. It can do indeed. It's so bizarre because sometimes I can paint something, and like you said, if someone says, "Oh, I really want to paint that model," and you get that bug, it literally bang, it's done. It flies by. And then I've heard this a lot from heavy metal painters. When I've chatted to them, they said, "Yeah, I've just had a week from hell because there was a model I had to paint and I hated it. And I hated every minute of every second I was painting that model." And you think, if you don't want to paint something, but you've got to paint it, it must be quite hard to sort of get that motivation.
Yeah, it is the worst thing, but you just got to treat it as a job and persevere and push through. Do you know what I mean? Commission painting, unfortunately, within painters, just being frank, it does separate, the men from the boys. Being honest, because you have to get work to a deadline, produce something that you're not maybe happy with in the sense of the scheme, the color combinations. Whether some clients don't even realise what certain colours clash and things like that, and there's so much depth to it in those kind of things. But you just have to see the destination as in the finished product and work the process and get it done. So
what do you do? How do you deal with, obviously, because it's your reputation above the door? How do you deal with if, say, someone comes to you and says, "Right, I want this done." You assign this to, right, Joe Blogs, and Joe Blogs then goes, "Do you know what? I can't." Does a half-assed job or says, "Actually, I can't get this piece finished." What's your process for dealing with that?
Well, in 7 years, we've never had any artists not take a job on or not finish a job or not complete one. So that's the first thing I want to say. But there are jobs, as I said, there are jobs that you get that you just have to persevere with. And the thing is, the process would be, all the guys know that the culture. It's very different. The culture at Siege, I'm not trying to go off on an off tangent, but the culture at Siege is very different because I think because of being in recruitment and seeing so many companies that have a them and us mentality with boss and management and employee, I would never allocate anything to someone that they don't want to do. Typically, we tend to always find out what armies and things that the team members don't like, and allocate accordingly to that, if that makes sense. So normally everyone gets projects that they tend to be happy with or like, but at the end of the day, they all know that the work is the work, and if it's the next job to be allocated and it's got to be done, then they've got to roll the sleeves up and do it. It's a very firm but fair kind of system. One of the guys, just not naming painter or not naming sort of client or the project within too many details, just to remain professional. There was a job that one of the guys completed recently. Absolutely hated the scheme. Absolutely hated it. The colours just didn't work with each other, but it was what the client wanted. And you just have to persevere and get it done. It's unfortunately that is the job. And you just have to do it. So that's kind of how it works at Siege. We all muck in, we all roll our sleeves up, we all do it. I'm not a big Tau fan, but we all work for the greater good, which is the greater good of the business and the growth, the growth of the business.
At the end of the day, it's the same as any job. I drive for a living. At the moment, when it's absolutely tipping down with rain and I've got deliveries to do that I have to walk up through millions of steps with all kinds of heavy stuff, you don't want to do it, but that's your job.
Nice.
And you
exactly.
know getting into it what the things are, and you mitigate as much as possible, but sometimes you have to do the dirty job.
100%, yeah. And the thing is, for every job that there is that you're like, oh, do you know what, I really don't like this scheme, or I'm sick of painting diamonds on 5 million Harlequins, or I'm sick of this, or I'm sick of this. There are those jobs that you get that you're just like, do you know what, I love this, I don't want to give it back.
Sure.
And that you have to take the rough with the smooth, unfortunately. But there's always going to be a job that you don't like.
Yeah.
But then we get some really funny jobs. We get, you can go on our YouTube channel. We actually posted it on our Facebook the other day. We had a client, and he'll be happy for me to talk about it because he plastered it everywhere himself over social media. But he had a Space Marine Army themed after bacon. Do you know what I mean? Like, it sounds absolutely bonkers, But we had a client who just literally, we sent him the spec sheet, and all our spec sheets, without going into too much detail about our business practices and giving away too much of our sort of competitive edge, but our spec sheets are infallible when it comes to a client selecting their project, and it's broken down fully for the painter and fully for the business and fully for the client. And literally in all the sections, rather than any text, we had a picture of rashers of bacon, a picture of a piglet, a picture of just some cartoon bacon, no text, nothing, and it was just paint it, use these images as reference, and that was it.
Wow.
So how do you even go about doing a piece like that? That's so difficult.
Ben, the artist that took the job on, painted them a maroon colour, so it looked like bacon. Yeah. All the trims on the Marines were painted in like a beige to look like the fat. Sure. All the purity seals on the models were rashers of bacon. It got ridiculous, but you do get really, really funny projects, and we got to take something stupidly ludicrous and turn it into something completely hilarious and also artistically not too bad. Do you know what I mean? So it's just there's everything. It has its virtues and it has its pitfalls, but you just got to work through both of them. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start to wrap up there, I think. Neil, your lessons at Adepticon, you still got some tickets going?
Yeah, well, a couple. There's a couple of tickets left to the painting Orc Flesh. You can pick those up. The lessons are on Friday morning. Unfortunately, quite a horrible time. The painting Orc Flesh, I believe, is like 9:30 in the morning.
Oh, you
but
fool.
The basic one is 8:30 in the morning on a Friday.
Oh.
Sort of probably the worst time slot you can imagine.
You fool.
But there's plenty of slots available on the basic one. I think not a lot of people know what it's about.
Sure.
But hopefully once a few people maybe see it and I could talk to some people on the day, maybe there'll be a few more takers. But plenty of tickets available. Get to Adepticon, check them out.
Get some social media posts out there, boy.
Yeah, do you know? I've done I did one, and then with social media. As soon as I have to sort of flog something on it, I feel bad.
You do one posting. you do one post and get others to share it. That's how it works. And if that Orc Flesh does sell out, if it is an early morning one, there is a good chance that some people might not turn up. So even if it does sell out, and feel free to turn up because there is a chance you could still get in. Your booth's going to be nice, and it was fairly obvious last year, wasn't it, at Siege? Nice and right at the front.
We've got a fairly obvious booth. You'll find us, but we always pump it out on social media where we are, what booth number we are, and all that kind of stuff. But if you are attending, then come by, say hello. It'd be nice to meet you. And if you're not and you're missing Adepticon, then we will hopefully see you another year. But you should definitely all sort of business interests and just me trying to plug anything out the way as a hobbyist, as a gamer, and as a painter. I advise you go to Adepticon because it is a great convention. It's
4 days of no sleep and utter madness, and it's great.
Yeah.
And Artist Opus obviously is another aspect of what you do. Will you do you show off like techniques there with the brushes, and you've got your special non-dry dry brush?
Series D, which is our dry brush range. Series S and Series M will also be on the stand as well, and they'll be demoed for all of those ranges, plus some other products as well. So
cool.
So yeah, we have a lot going on.
Yeah, and if you're
and to say as well that obviously I found last year that myself and the other painters that were travelling over, it was almost our meeting point during the weekend. So if we wanted to meet up, we'd often walk over to the Siege stand. So if you want to meet any of us, there's a good chance we might be hanging around.
Yeah,
don't put them off, Neil. And just a quick shout out: if you Artist Opus brushes. Element sell them as a sponsor of the show, so you can use our link and buy your Artist Opus brushes. Has Byron still got his videos of using the D up on Element?
He has, yeah. So AO has got its own YouTube channel, and we do plan to be doing a lot more video content moving forward. We've got various demos on the YouTube channel, so you can go check out. They're all free. You can go and have a look at them. We've also got I think it's a 10-minute demonstration of Series D, because Series D isn't just a set of dry brushes. It comes with its own bespoke technique that Byron spent 4 or 5 years developing, basically, along with the brushes. Series D, being frank and being to the point, is his baby. Series S was more my kind of baby, but yeah, generally speaking, there's loads of videos on there that you can go watch that will help you to learn how to use the technique that comes with that dry brush range.
Awesome.
So yeah.
I'll try and put as many links as I can in the show notes as well, so it's easy to find your way. But if you search for Siege Studios anywhere, then you're going to find all your information, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, chaps, for coming on.
Thank you very much.
And hopefully...
Good to speak to you, Greg.
Well, yeah, have a good time at Adepticon. I won't be too jealous, honest. But, well, yeah, we'll see. I could be in Durham that weekend gaming if the baby's not too late, but we'll have to see.
Hopefully there won't be a massive delay like we had last time, Greg.
Well, I don't know. It paid for your trip this time, didn't it?
Well, yeah, it sort of did, yeah. So, I was secretly thinking to myself, do you know what? I wouldn't mind another 4-hour delay just to get that compensation.
Quick before we leave the EU and it's taken off us.
Yes.
So, yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, guys. And, I'll see you at an event somewhere soon, I'm sure, at some point. Or plenty of them going on.
See you soon.
Cheers. Okay, you've made it to the end of another episode of The Imperial Truth. I was going to try and fit more in here, but time and my voice and life have beaten me. I think we'll push some stuff back to next episode. And fingers crossed, next episode I will be having Caleb from CK Studios and possibly Kat as well. Hopefully Kat as well. But I'm thinking what I might do is open the floor up to have a little bit of a Q&A with Kat and Caleb. Obviously, Caleb might answer more of the painting-natured questions. So, for those, we've had Caleb on before. Those who don't know, Caleb and Kat run CK Studios, who teach painting and have people that work for them as well. People like Vince Ventrilla, Justin Kiefer, Sam Lenz has done stuff for them. All very accomplished people in their fields. And Caleb was asked by GW to do some videos which were put out, and asked to work with GW as well, doing some seminars for them. We'll be talking about that in the show. But if you've got questions about painting, about airbrushing, anything like that, then feel free to fire them in. And what I kind of like to think of, some people are reticent to ask questions because they feel like it's a stupid question or it's a noob question or things like that. But actually, let's open it up. Like, if you've got a question about airbrushing, then, that you haven't found an answer for, there are lots of answers out there. Fire some over. I don't promise to do every question, but we'll try and ask Caleb and Kat questions. Caleb has he's won Golden Demons. He's got a lot of experience doing this. Fantastic painter. Some people got questions about the videos he did for GW. I know I certainly heard some. I've certainly had to rebut some people who think the elements of that weren't as honest as maybe they could be. But I know I talked to Caleb the evening after he made those videos, so I know a bit of the background there, but we will cover a little bit of that. But yeah, if you've got any questions about airbrushing, feel free to send them in. I'll post it up on the social media as well. But you can send those questions in to greg@theimperialtruth.com. You can send it with other feedback as well, or you can message the Facebook page, or you can tweet at @imperial_truth, and we'll build them up and hopefully have a little chat out if we can. We'll find a time. We'll get that done before the end of next month. As I say, if you've got any other feedback on the show, as I mentioned in the intro, towards the end of the intro, if you've got any ideas for things you might like to see the Games Workshop talk about or us talk about on the show, but any of those community articles, something like that, then any good ideas, then send them in as well, because it's always good to hear stuff like that. Don't forget Geek Shield as well. We welcome them on as a sponsor, and there's still that chance of winning that limited edition book from Pete. Go and check out the show notes for that. I'll put a link in there. For as little as £3, you can win that limited edition Siege of Terror novel. And well done for Pete for doing that. I think that's fantastic. There's half a chance that next show we might be talking about a couple of events. I went down to Portsmouth last week. I didn't have time to put that in here. And Company of Legends is going on in March, but there's a good chance I won't make it. It's all baby dependent, so he needs to come in a shortish time for me to be able to leave up for that one. I'm not going to leave my wife alone with a newborn baby unless it's something that can't be helped. So I might have to pull out of that one, which would be a shame, but other things are more important than that. And we've got Adepticon coming up at the end of the month, and I look forward to hearing tales of daring do in all the heresy events going on up there. We're also going to have obviously a GW preview seminar. It's 2 hours long, so there's going to be a lot of stuff in there. I think they've kind of made a commitment that they're going to cover a lot of game systems, so we might get a little bit of information. As shown from the LBO, they're more open to talk about things like Forge World 30k from that, which will be pretty cool if we can get a little sneak preview of something coming up. And we're getting closer and closer to that book must be being released, so it's all exciting times. I'll probably be up at various points during the night of around that time, and I'm going to try and keep an eye on what's going on with all my friends over the pond there, and be very jealous of them being in Chicago or Schaumburg and enjoying themselves. There was something I did want to mention at the start, and when we were talking about the community articles, and I didn't, and I think it's fairly important to put out there. I'm not sure if everyone's realised, but one of the aspects that's changed with Warhammer Community, with the way they've redone their website, which I'm getting used to, and I'm kind of, I think I prefer it now, but I'm not 100% sure, but certainly getting used to it. But one of the features they put in, there's a little thumbs up, you can like articles, and Seb on Warhammer TV was very clear in saying that they will be, they already look online, they look on forums, they look on Facebook, they see what's going on. They might not be active in those places all the time, but they know that they've got their ear to the ground a little bit more with the community, and that's a good thing. That's really cool. One of the aspects of Warhammer community is to like their articles, and the more likes something gets, the chances are they're going to be more inclined to do it. Yeah, that stands to reason, doesn't it? So if you do go on there and read the 30k articles, and there's something about them that you like, or just you like the fact that even they're doing the Road to Thramus every month, and you want to see more, and you want to see improvements, but you want to see more, then like those articles. I think it's kind of important that we do that. If you have issues with them, or you have suggestions for them, get in contact with GW. They've got an email. I think it's probably at the bottom of that page. There's probably a link to it. Send them a message. Say, hey guys, have you thought about doing? Hey guys, I like your articles, but they're a little bit this or a little bit that. I would prefer something like this. They're listening, and if they read it and go, in fact, we've seen it many times on Warhammer TV or whatever, where someone's gone, how about doing this? And you've seen someone kind of go, yeah, that could be good. And then something comes of it. Maybe not that exact thing, but it sparks something and they move forward. So feel free to feedback with them. They listen. That doesn't always mean they act on what they've been asked, because that would be impossible, be a bit stupid. But they do listen. There's a difference between those two things. So, get in contact. Treat them like human beings, please. But get in contact and tell them what you like as well, actually. As much as it's important to tell them what you think they could be doing, it's important to let them know that you enjoy what they're doing. And the like feature on the website is a good way to do that. But I'm going to leave it there. I'm failing. I'm struggling along. My voice is getting a bit sorer and sorer. So I will see you all next time. You have been listening to The Imperial Truth.